Tryphaena thistle.
Thwaite. Thwaite.
I love that name.
Trips.
Tryphaena thistlethwaite.
I'm going to go with Tryphaena thistlethwaite.
Joe gets it
That's
every
it.
time.
This looks like the kind of name you would see in a P.G. Woodhouse story.
Or a Harry Potter.
Yeah.
I was going to say, this is my Harry Potter name. I like Tryphaena, but how are you saying it?
I'm thinking Tryphaena.
Tryphaena.
Or Tryphena.
Tryphena. There's a lot of different ways you could say this.
Typhoid Mary. Oh, wait. No, that's right.
No. Okay, so she's Benjamin's sister.
Right.
And she wrote a book called The Memoirs and Correspondence of Dr. H. Bathurst. And she said that he was traveling with his entire suite. And I don't know what that means necessarily. I think
suite is like a bunch of rooms, so that sounds like a lot of work for the horse.
That's a lot of baggage.
No, there's another definition, which is like much more
like an entourage.
Yeah, an entourage.
Yeah.
And it does sound like he was definitely traveling with more than the one attendant, but Herr Kraus was his main attendant when he was in Austria and Germany.
So this is something that I'm glad that you did more research on the vehicle than I did, because if I'm understanding this is a seat with a set of wheels under it. It is not a full enclosure. Would that be correct?
Yeah, it's probably more like 2 seats, but yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. My reason for that is the descriptions of his disappearance. I want this to be understood.
Yeah, I would encourage people to look up it's like Shay's like a Shay Lounge, so it's Chaise. You can look it up and you will immediately go, "Oh, that thing."
You know, in my my high class family, we call that a Chase Lounge.
Okay.
I am from the woods.
Yeah, I know you are. Anyway, Benjamin was dressed in gray trousers on the day of his disappearance. Well, this was his traveling gear. Mm-hmm. So it was the entire time he was basically wearing this. He was dressed in gray trousers, a gray frogged short coat. You know what frogs are?
What is frog?
Okay, frogs are... This is where my degree comes in handy.
2 times a year.
2 times a year. So you know when you see the like really ornate embroidery on either side, and then you've got the thing that's just a ball that goes through a loop?
Oh, yeah. So
You're wait, okay. Oh, okay. For everybody who's not in the studio, Devin is pointing at where the lapels of a jacket would be coming together. It's on your sternum.
It's instead of buttons. It doesn't have to be up here.
Oh,
it can be all the way down.
Okay.
That was just a convenient place for me to be my
in front of the microphone.
Yeah. And then so it's the little ball that goes through a loop. It's not a button.
Yeah.
It's all fabric or embroidery. So you guys know what those are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sort of.
I'm wearing one right now.
Yeah, and a short coat is
It's a short coat.
Yeah. It's kind of like a fur-lined capelet that has sleeves.
Is this kind of like the short 80s jean jacket that has currently come back into fashion?
No.
You know, the just above the midriff?
John Travolta and all that stuff.
It's like if you take that length but make it a cloak with sleeves, yes.
Okay, so I was right. I knew I knew fashion.
Okay. We'll just go ahead and agree to disagree on that one. Anyway, so he wore his gray frogged short coat over a sable fur greatcoat lined with...
He wrote it over which he...
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Over which he wore... That's how I wrote it. You're welcome. Over which he wore a sable fur greatcoat, which was lined with a violet velvet and a matching sable hat.
Pretty spendy wardrobe there.
Yes. He also had a scarf and a very valuable diamond pin that, pinned the scarf. Probably he was wearing it kind of like a jabot, which is like when like tie. I'm sorry,
You're trying not to hit the microphone.
I'm trying to mime it while staying in.
It's all ruffled around the neck.
Scarf and wrapped around, and then you put a pin right here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
You guys know this guy, right? I mean, you've seen paintings of this guy.
Of course.
Right?
Oh, yeah. And, and he's obviously a wealthy guy.
Yeah.
He liked to show it off.
And not really hiding it while traveling through, rural enemy territory.
Yeah, no, not wise. Yes, me.
All right, so what is our boy doing?
Okay, so he arrives in Perlberg, Germany on November 25th of 1809. Yeah, 1809. I'm sorry. It was kind of in the midday is my understanding of when he arrived. And he spent the afternoon writing letters and then burning those letters.
Well, burning some letters.
Some letters, not all of them, some of them. And then he went to a local coffee house where he contacted one Captain Klutzing, who was the commander of a squadron of like crusade. Basically like friendly soldiers in that town, friendly to his English plight. And basically he said he was a merchant and he didn't think he was safe. So could the captain please provide him with a couple of soldiers to guard him? And the captain probably saying like, crap, yeah, this is a really boring place. You can have a couple soldiers, no problem.
He was also super agitated. According to the Bathurst, according to the accountings, Bathurst was making all of the gestures of a guy who was wigging out.
Yeah, he apparently couldn't even hold a cup of coffee to his lips without trembling. He was really freaked out.
That's what happens with me in the 98th cup.
Right. So the captain says, okay, yeah, you can have a couple guards. We're not really doing that much right now anyway, so here you go. So Bathurst goes back to the inn, which was called the White Swan, that he was staying at. And where his horse and carriage were stabled, blah, blah, blah. And that's where he'd been writing letters as well, was that inn. He goes back with his 2 guards. He slept fitfully on a table for a couple hours in like the middle of the afternoon, which is what happens when you have a bunch of coffee, right?
Yeah, because his plan was to like travel at night to avoid attention, right?
Well, it became his plan. When he originally arrived in town, he had asked one of the locals if they could switch out horses, which I guess is like a thing that you can do.
It totally is a thing. There's posts for horses.
Right,
you're doing a one-to-one exchange for fresh horses.
And he had said, we're going to leave tomorrow morning. We're going to stay the night. We're going to leave tomorrow morning. Can you have the horses ready for that time? And it's called an ulster. What the ulster said was, of course, no problem. When he woke up from his fitful sleep around 7, Bathurst actually said, you know what? No, it's going to be safer for us to travel at night. So actually, can you have those horses ready by like 9? And the ulster said, okay, dude.
That's Ostler, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Not Ulster. Ostler.
I like Ulster better, but you're right. It's Ostler. I'm sorry, you guys.
Also spelled,
he's a stable hand.
Yeah. Stable hand.
Stable hand. Also spelled with an H or without an H.
Yeah.
Because it's got the French pronunciation with the H is silent.
With the H in hand?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the guy who's in charge of the horses says, yeah, okay, we can get those horses ready for you by 9, no problem.
Jerk, I got nothing else to do.
So at 7, when he woke up from his fitful sleep, Benjamin Bathurst. I just realized I've been calling him Benjamin this entire time. Now I'm switching to Bathurst. Sorry.
You're getting a little too familiar there.
Yeah, sorry. Mr. Bathurst.
That's better.
Dismisses his guards. So at 7, he dismisses his guards. And then he goes outside to oversee the reloading of his things onto the carriage, which is just like on the back of the carriage.
Again, not a very high enclosed vehicle.
Yeah. So he goes out, he steps around the horses, like onto the other side of where the horses are.
Yeah, I heard the story as he and Herr Kraus basically headed out to like hop aboard, and he like basically headed around the front of the horses, basically as if he was going to climb into the driver's seat if you were an American on the left-hand side driving the car. And then,
you have heard that account. That account is inaccurate.
That's not the only account that I've ever heard. That's one of the accounts.
But that's not, as far as I can tell, that's not actually what happened.
Yeah.
But we can do the fantasy.
But there are other accounts say that he left to go check out the horses
several minutes ahead of time.
So why don't we just tell the fantasy version real quick here.
The one that you hear the most often.
Yeah. So the fantasy version is that Kraus and Bathurst go out, and then so Bathurst goes around the front of the horses to get in the driver's seat, and just disappears into thin air.
So basically, he disappears behind the horse and then never reappears.
Never reappeared at the door of the carriage.
Or the ladder, or whatever
it was. Yeah.
The more reputable accounts I've heard of this says that Bathurst went out to check on the horses and to oversee the loading of his things on there.
A little bit before Kraus.
Yeah, and Kraus was still inside. And then when Bathurst didn't return for an hour, went outside and was like, have you guys seen that guy? And everyone was like, no, he just disappeared.
Well, and I remember seeing some stuff. There was some discussion that Kraus had presumed that maybe he had gone to the outhouse, or maybe he had gone back in the building, and unbeknownst to Kraus, or maybe he had gone back to see who was the guy that assigned the soldiers to him.
You mean Captain Klitzig?
Yeah, like maybe he had gone back to see him for some unknown reason.
Yeah.
So he's just like, you know what? He's my boss. He does this stuff. I'm just going to hang out and wait for him. Is really kind of what...
Well, sure. Why not? I mean,
Yeah.
he had no idea that he disappeared.
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, Bathurst attendants, but they didn't find anything, and it was also kind of the middle of the night. I mean, November, 9 p.m.
Yeah, it's
not
like
exactly
right now.
like
It's gonna be
light out.
dark. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it is for us right now.
Super
It is
dark.
super dark
And
out.
it's not even 9 yet.
And it's... Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not 9.
Yeah. So that's it. That's our story, kind of.
Well, now, there's a
couple other
developments.
details.
A couple other details. So a couple other little details to add here. On December 16th, 2 old women... Okay, I guess I should back up a little bit. The version that I am choosing to believe is Bathurst was traveling with more than one attendant, I believe.
And not unusual for those
Which
days.
is definitely not unusual. I think it was him and Krause in the one
Krause.
carriage thing that they had, and then there
one
were
vehicle.
attendants that were following,
On
maybe on
horseback,
foot,
maybe?
maybe on horseback,
Yeah.
but kind of at a safe distance, so it didn't seem like it was this huge entourage of an important person. But they were all there, and so it is my understanding that Krause stayed in Pearlburg, to investigate this disappearance and sent the additional attendants on to England to deliver the news of Bathurst's disappearance.
And
But you will see often in other versions that Krause was the only one traveling with him and was the attendant that went on to the UK or to London to report his disappearance and then returned to do some more investigation.
And I think that's the problem with this story, is because this story is 200 years old, and it is very exaggerated at times.
Oh, yeah.
A little bit.
And it has been exaggerated many times over the decades.
Yeah.
I think that's part of why we have this differing
Well, there are many versions
variations
of, the story.
of who
Yeah.
was there and who
Yeah.
delivered the he's missing declaration.
So I will tell you, the reason that I believe that Krause stayed behind is that Krause was familiar with Bathurst's family. He had been his attendant for a very long time. I think since he had become a diplomat. That's my understanding, that he had kind of been his main attendant. So he was familiar and friendly with the Bathurst family. And in Tryphina's version of this story, she went with her father when they had been called by a local magistrate to receive this news. So they went to the magistrate house, and the magistrate said, an attendant came and told me that Benjamin Bathurst is missing. And it is my sense that had Krause, this longtime attendant and like good family friend, been the one to deliver the news, he would have been there, and she would have mentioned, Krause was there. So
Okay.
that's my reasoning behind that.
That makes sense.
Just
I'll buy
so
that.
people
Yeah,
know.
I'll run with that.
I mean, it's totally possible. It's different. Like you said, it's like 200 years old, so who knows? Anyway, so we're going to go ahead and assume that Krause stayed and everybody else went.
All right.
So on December 16th, so 3-ish weeks
3
later,
weeks, yeah.
2 old women brought Krause a pair of pants that they said belonged to Bathurst.
Well,
They said they found them in the woods while they were gathering firewood.
yeah, they
Yeah.
were later ID'd as his
Maybe
pants.
his pants.
And yeah, that's true. They weren't.
They were
100% for
gray
sure,
trousers.
But yeah,
Well, there was
was a
one.
letter.
There was a letter in them.
was
There
that
was
letter.
a letter, but we can talk about that letter in
Okay.
a second. They found them apparently in a stand of
Copse?
trees, a copse of trees,
Cops.
think
Which
it's
one?
cops.
Copse of
Cops.
trees,
Okay.
just outside of town. They contained nothing but 2 bullet holes and a hand-scrawled in pencil note on a scrap of paper to Benjamin Bathurst's wife.
okay.
I am not 100% convinced that this was actually from him.
Well, and there's no blood.
There's no blood, so the bullet holes are likely fake. And I think it's likely that this letter is fake. They say it was scrawled in, like kind of a really haphazard handwriting. I don't believe that this is his.
Well, and I feel like there's a bit of fanciful addition.
Oh, yeah.
Because the letter says, I don't trust so-and-so and I'm going to be betrayed, and please don't marry again.
Yeah. And we'll talk about the actual contents of this note in theories.
Okay.
Because it does feed into one of the theories.
Okay.
But it is my general sense that pretty much everything, whether these were his pants or not, they may have actually been his pants, but that pretty much everything surrounding his pants was totally falsified. I don't think the note was his. I don't think the bullet holes
Found
were
his name embroidered in the...
Yeah.
Well, the bullet holes were real. They just weren't.
They weren't
fired when he was in the pants.
Or anyone was in the pants. And I should note that it's very likely that these pants were planted there a couple days before they were found, or maybe even that the old women were lying
in on it.
Yeah, we're lying about.
They murdered him and they put the pants out there.
Or they didn't. I mean, they didn't have to put the pants out there. They could have just brought them and said, "We found these in the woods when we were looking for mushrooms." Blah. We're old women. Believe us.
Of course.
Old ladies are always looking for mushrooms.
Yeah.
In the woods.
Yeah. So Bathurst's his wife and her brother traveled to Germany to find out what had happened to Bathurst. There was definitely, at the time, a lot of rumors about this being a French conspiracy to get rid of this diplomat. So they apparently, again, according to the fanciful version, had an audience with Napoleon himself.
I did not know
what
you were talking about.
Much more likely, some random proxy for Napoleon met with them, and of course just said, "No, I have no idea what you're talking about." No. Who? Bathurst? Bathurst? No, I don't know who that person is.
Never heard of the name.
Never heard the name.
I don't know what that is.
No, a bath? I don't know. Is that some sort of newfangled way to bathe yourself? I don't understand.
I know.
That whole description right there, now I cannot get Napoleon from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure out of my head.
Right?
Oh, that's right.
Because that is exactly how he behaved.
I've got to see that movie again. It's been too long.
Oh,
Everything I know about history.
Perfect. Yeah. That's everything I know about history.
He and Genghis Khan, right up there,
Exactly.
Yeah. And what is it? Socrates.
Socrates.
Socrates, yeah.
So now we're on to theories.
Woohoo!
So in true Devon fashion, we're doing there's a couple subheadings of theories.
You mean riddled with bullet points?
Yeah.
Are they real bullet points or fake?
They're real bullet points.
Oh, okay.
Blood
Have you
and
seen the tears in this paper?
Yeah.
So the first kind of subheading of theories is thief or theft.
Theft, yeah, that
depending
makes sense.
on if you do spell check or not.
Yeah. He was obviously well worth robbing.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. So it turns out that Bathurst, just even the way he was dressing notwithstanding, he may have been pulling out his really expensive pocket watch and flaunting it around and kind of flashing his really heavy coin purse around in this tiny little kind of poverty-ridden town.
Yeah, a place that was kind of in a war zone.
Yeah.
There were refugees and bandits, and he's wearing this massively expensive sable coat with his diamond pin through his
I really feel like he was a bit naive
of
the ways of
the
world.
Yeah.
Because he'd been raised to be a diplomat. He'd been raised to be around the court all the time. He had no idea that people would assign value to this itty-bitty stone on a pin that I just used to hold my scarf in place.
Well, I think likely he did actually know that people would assign value to that, but the value that he thought that people would assign to that was respect. Right?
That's a good
because
point.
if you're a diplomat, that's how you garner respect, is you make an entrance as somebody who should be listened to because they dress in the way that, garners respect.
And if you're a cut purse, it garners a meal.
Yeah, but if you're in rural war-torn Pearlburg,
they don't know about diplomatic.
That's not
niceties,
hey, respect. You're hey, look at that idiot. He has a lot of stuff that I would like to have. Thank you.
I'm gonna go grab his Nikes.
I bet I could hit him over the head and just take it all.
Oh hell yeah!
Right. So it's not unlikely that this was a theft. But there's two different ways that this could have gone down. One is it could have been a theft and dropping Left for Dead sort of situation, or it could have been a theft and murder. And let's talk about both theories.
Aren't these kind of the same?
They're a little the same. One is that
one implies
he
an
survived.
intention to kill, and the other implies
the
that
intention just to cosh him, but they accidentally killed him.
Yeah, it's the old TV show. I bonk you over the head and take your stuff, and you wake up an hour later and go, I have a goose egg, and I'm naked. Whoops.
Yeah, exactly. So we're gonna talk about the theft and being dropped theory first. This comes from Trifina's book. It's like a footnote in her book, actually, and we'll link to this book. It's on Google Play. I think it's probably like a free resource at this point. It's like almost 200 years old.
So royalty free at this point.
Yeah,
I hope so.
No copyrights.
I don't think you have to buy it to read it. It's all on Google, which is pretty great, actually.
I do like that.
And pro tip: we're gonna post the book, but you can like.